I can hear you.
Trump is now president of the United States.
Why are men and boys struggling? And what should we do about it?
In a world of chaos and our attention is being pulled in different directions, the Pursuing Truth podcast is seeking the solution by having authentic conversations that are aimed to impact culture. Hello, everyone. I am Levi Brickley with the Pursuing Truth podcast, and this is another episode of the Real Talk Radio Show where I get to sit down with Brody Ryan here from El Dorado, Kansas. We're both kind of from the same area, so what's going on, man? Where you been?
Well, I've been in Florida, man.
Yeah. It's was it hard for you to move away?
Honestly, at first I was like gung ho. I was like, dude, I got to get out of here. I was like, I saw my opportunity. I was going to go. And as I started going through it, I was like, oh, dude, this is like the biggest change in my life, man. I'm going to be away from everybody I know.
Right.
So yeah, it was a little tough, but we're getting through it.
Tell a little bit about yourself, dude. Family, work, all that good stuff.
So I'm Brody. I'm born and raised El Dorado, Kansas, same place as you. Went to high school here, went to college here, started work, went to work for welding, got out of that, got into aviation. A recovering alcoholic and drug addict. Got 663 days sober on that.
Nice, dude. That is freaking awesome. Thanks, bro.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a little bit about myself. I'm 23. So yeah.
Dude, how did you get started down that road of alcohol and drugs and everything?
You know, it's a slippery slope, but actually I think about this often. What really started it is it's kind of tough, but I was working nights. It was my first big boy job. I was working nights, and I would get off at 6 a.m. man, and I couldn't go to sleep, you know. So I pour myself a little straight vodka and I'd sip it. And it would help me get, it helped me go to sleep, and then I was kind of like, oh, this is fun, and then it just progressed, man.
The downer, man.
Yeah.
I was the same way, dude. I used to drink all the time, and I mean, it doesn't sound like yours, 600 days sober, but I'm 3 weeks into it, and I already experienced the challenge of like last night. Ryan and I were sitting here, and man, I wanted to grab a beer. I wanted to sit back and drink. And it is that side of it too, is like when I get off of work, sometimes I just have so much energy and I just need to have that calm. What kind of worked in there? Like, was it your gateway per se to drug addiction, and what kind of drugs?
And dude, there's such a big step there, to start it off, when I started drinking, I didn't drink in high school really ever, maybe like 2-3 times. Mm-hmm. And I started, sipping alcohol here and there and stuff like that. And it just opened up and it progressively got worse. And I started going out and I started drinking more, and I was like, man, this is fun. Yeah. And I can't really answer why I enjoyed it so much, but it was something about it. And it turned in real quick. By the time I was 19, I was getting, people to buy me, bottles of vodka that I would, drink a quarter of, a half of a night. And it just progressively went worse. And then probably 2 years ago, I kind of, I never really did drugs, never really smoked weed, never liked it. And I tried cocaine for the first time. And after that, dude,
did you love it?
It was over. I loved it. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Cause I didn't like weed. I didn't like any of that, stuff. Pills didn't work for me. But the cocaine, man, it was just.
Dang. All I did was I smoked weed in high school.
Yeah.
And I always kind of had this boundary for myself where I was like, man, I'm not going down that route, because I know I had family members that went down that route, and like the misery in their life, and now like 50, 60, 70 years old, and you look at their life and I'm like, man, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. And
so like, I think sometimes when we have like the negative influences in our life, it brings to light who we don't want to be. So we make actions that we implement the changes so we don't become them.
Yeah.
Do you have something similar to that, where you had like a person that was in your life that kind of went down a dark path and you recognize that?
Absolutely, to a certain extent. It was never something that I watched, but my father I knew growing up, and it was really kept from me and never shown to me, because he was pretty much sober before I was born. But I knew that he had a past with the alcohol and stuff like that. But I think growing up, my parents never drank around me, and if they did, I was never around, and I never had that. I've never had that experience of like seeing what it does to somebody. I never watched alcohol or drugs ruin someone's life. I just thought it was kind of a aimless activity that, we do as kids, when we're 20 years old, just having fun. It was never, never once did I stop and think, oh, this has gone too far.
Yeah.
And
dude, you hit on it though. It is an aimless activity. I mean,
So
when I'm
recreational.
struggling with alcohol, I'm like, dude, what would be the point if I pulled it out?
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, it adds no value to my life. And one thing that I struggled with was I lose the ability to articulate my thoughts in a way that other people can understand me. And I'm really offsetting. Like, I know I say things that make people upset, make them mad. And oftentimes I can kind of like cover that with like explaining myself and the deeper meaning. And it's because I'm such a deep thinker.
Yeah.
And so I have this like barrier when I'm trying to relate with people. And when I'm drunk, I lose that ability to mend that gap. Do you ever experience that?
So it's funny. I've had something I've been working on a lot lately, but growing up, I had such a big ego, a big head. It was a shield.
Yeah.
It was a shield for trying to hide who I am as a person. And it was a, I don't care attitude. I don't care what you think. I'm going to tell you how it is. And that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And, I heard a lot of people's feelings, said a lot of mean things, but it was quick with, oh, I'll say something mean. And then it's, oh, I'm just kidding. Don't take it to heart. It doesn't mean anything like that,
So can you kind of like backtrack just a little bit and go back to, you're living in El Dorado, you're living kind of this chaotic life with drugs and alcohol, and like where you're at now and how all that transpired?
Really steps off is I was drinking a lot. I was going partying, 18, 19, and then I got into a serious relationship. And that serious relationship, it was good for me because it helped me grow a lot and who I am as a person. And she did a great job of showing me values and stuff like that. But we still had issues. And towards the end of things, I think I kind of wanted to I was kind of checked out mentally towards the end of things. And I masked that with, oh, well, let's get drunk. And so we had this favorite place we'd go to, and we would always get drunk. And it just, it was like, hey, you want to go get our favorite food? You want to go get our favorite food? Because I knew if we went and got our favorite food that I could drink. We were going to drink. We were going to get drunk. And then I cut that relationship off, and it was downward spiral. I was going out every.
So hold on. Why did you cut it off?
I just felt like I felt like I was growing up too fast. I felt like I was throwing away my younger ages. I was missing out, I was missing out on the girls. I was missing out on the partying and all that fun lifestyle. I felt like I was just growing up too quick.
She was holding you back from the excitement.
Yeah, and as terrible as it sounds to say, because she was a great person, but yeah, that's how I felt myself, as I was being held back I was holding myself back from all this experience and stuff. I didn't want to grow up that quick.
And see, I've been on the reverse end of that, where my first girlfriend that I dated for 3.5 years, she ended up leaving me because I was like, no clubbing, no partying, like it's time to grow up, and we're like 21 years old, and she's like, but I'm not experiencing my college experience, And that would be challenging. So, like, how did you build up the courage? Because this is kind of my thing. I've never been good at ending a relationship. It's so difficult for me to contemplate when I'm already committed. How did you build the courage to do that?
I just, in my head, I was like, I think that this is wrong. I think this isn't what I want. This isn't what I need to do. And I waited for an opportunity, a fight. And I said that I'm done, and I took a break, and I moved home for a couple days, and I went back. I went back to fix it. Like we were gonna fix it, we were gonna work it out. I went back to fix it, and then I was like, what am I doing? I'm doing it again. I need out. And that's when I finally cut it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Absolutely, please.
So I imagine you guys were having sex. And so while you're having sex with her, did you feel that you were and this sounds bad, but I'd be honest. I know that I've been here. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to go back when we're having sex.
Yeah.
Like it's a way that we connect, you know?
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's like the recognition, is this why God calls us to wait for marriage?
Yeah.
Because you almost kind of have this soul tied to this person. Mm-hmm. And all these other emotions are in play, and you feel that you're losing that intimacy. Uh-huh. So when you guys broke up and you said you went to this dark place, explain that a little bit. Like what was that?
I missed it. I regretted my decision for some time. I made a mistake, and that was my thought process on it. And to cope with that is when I started my slippery slope of drinking and drugs and women. I mean, you know, because I never was the way I was then before then. I never was sleeping with, you know, a new girl every week. I was never, you know, doing that stuff. My eyes was on trying to find a solid relationship, and that's what I found. And I got that. And then after I had that for some time, I felt, I'm missing out, you know.
Complacency kills us men.
And to combat what you just said right there is it's so easier to go back to sex. In that relationship, I never really felt like it was intimate and there was that, but I don't feel like I was really going back for the sex. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's just, I don't know, that specific reason. After that, there was a lot of relationships that I went back for that. Yeah, it was easier I was lonely. It's been 2 weeks.
Because obviously she meant more to you. I mean, to clarify, obviously she meant more to you
was
than
one of the
the
people
intimacy.
Yeah.
Just from my standpoint was like, I always felt like, well, this is convenient.
Yeah.
For that intimacy side of it, but also like construed my emotions and made me have possibly a higher proclivity to go back to her. But I think all of us, especially in today's culture, all of us struggle with that because it's so culturally acceptable to live that lifestyle. And so you're in this chaos, you're out partying, you're out drinking, you're out doing all of these drugs. And then what made you move away? And like, what steps have you taken in the midst of moving away?
You know, I got sober. I was sober over a year before I moved away. And I always felt like I had more to me than a comfortable life. I've always had a good job, a job that was easy to settle for. But the last thing that I've ever been able to do is settle. I've never been able to settle. I always want more. I always want to progress, and that's just how I am wired mentally. It's great on specific things, but some things it messes up a lot of things. It's kind of the concept of chasing greener grass.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I always felt like there was more to offer, and I just had this opportunity from a friend who offered me a fantastic job opportunity, and I took it, rolled with it, and then it gave me this opportunity to go to Florida and pursue what I love down there. And I've always wanted to move away, and I don't want to be 40 years old and be like, I never did it.
Where did it go?
Yeah, I missed it. I missed out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had to go. I had to do it for myself.
Yeah. And so what have you been doing down there? And what's that transition been like, moving away from all your friends? How are you developing relationships with people?
You know, down there, a lot of it, I'm just focused on my work and progressing. I've been dating. I've been trying to date down there. It is a little tough. But grabbing a friend group, I really haven't been able to do. A lot of my connections with people are at work, and I work with a lot of older people. And just I don't like to incorporate my work life into my personal life. I try to keep that separate.
Absolutely. And I would imagine those guys are probably drinking and doing the things that you probably don't want to be a part of in your sobriety.
Yeah.
And I think that would be extremely challenging. You know, I've lived here all of my life. I've lived in this house for almost 10 years now. And I've always thought like this was the place I was going to raise a family. I was always going to be around my brothers and sisters and my mom. And then now, like, I'm approaching 30 years old and I'm like, man, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to run away, you know, because this is so, I guess, easy, but I don't feel challenged. I want the discomfort because I believe in our discomfort is what brings our growth. And it's too easy. I want to compete in life. I don't want to just take the participation trophy because I'm living in the small town that I've always grown up in and have all of these connections with people. I would rather develop those relationships. And I think now I kind of have some of those opportunities coming down the road, and I intend to do that. But when I move, I'm not moving for the job. I'm moving for this platform. For more opportunities to sit down and have conversations with people that will impact others. And how can I do that? Is developing it now and having like you come over, sit down here and talk about it. Dude, that's awesome that you've taken those steps in your life. You kind of hit on it. What was the dating world like down there? Is it much different than Kansas, or does it just like kind of seem like playing across the board, or what?
I'm trying to compare it to Kansas, but man, it's different. It's different. A lot of people down there are the lifestyle is so much different than what I'm used to, so it's kind of tougher. You know, I come from this, you know, small town kind of Kansas thing with a little bit of hick to me. Yeah. And I go down there and it's just like a whole new world. The dating scene, you know, of course there's tons of beautiful women down there, got great people to meet. But you know, unfortunately with my age group, it's a lot of based around, you know, they want to party, they want to go out, they want to have fun. And I don't mind going out every once in a while, but you know, when you want to go out every weekend, that's just not what I want to do. There's so many other things that I can do that are fun that aren't involved.
So are you doing like online dating or?
Yeah. I do try the online dating. So yeah, I use Tinder and Bumble. I'm banned from Hinge. I got banned from Hinge. So yeah, that's a funny story. If you want to, I
want to know this story.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. So I got. Why is he laughing so hard?
How do you get banned from Hinge?
I never thought I would get banned from something. So I got on Hinge, dude, and I matched with this girl. And
Ryan, put it on both of us.
I get on Hinge. I matched with this girl, subpar, solid, maybe 6.5, 7. You know, I shouldn't say that. But
it's okay, man. We all put them on a scale. Come on, let's be honest.
Do we want? Okay, all right. So, anyways, matched with this girl, cute girl. So I always go straight. I try to keep the talk on the apps low. I try to go straight for the Snapchat because I've wasted so much time on people who aren't who they are or robots. Mm-hmm. So I try to go straight for Snap so that way I can see if they're a legitimate person, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we started talking on Snap, and I cracked the joke. So when do I come over? You know, and there she's like, oh, she said you can come over tonight, and I was like, okay. And I was like, this is a bit of a red flag there. More like a hookup style type thing. And I was like, oh, okay, kind of rolling with it. I was like, okay, so when? And she said, well, I got to wait for my husband to leave. This girl's our age. So I was like, okay. So I was rolling with it some more because my homies in my group chat wanted to see where this goes, you know, because I'm sending them screenshots. She was like, yeah, he goes to work at 10. And then after I put my kid down, you can come over. And I was like, oh, okay, you know. At this point, I'm cashed out. I'm like, I'm not going to do this. Yeah. But, you know, my friends are antagonizing me to see where this goes. So I was like, okay, cool, you know, whatever. Let's see if this goes where it goes. And I think my questions kind of spooked her. And all of a sudden, she had unadded me on everything, blocked me and unadded me on everything. And then the next day, I went to get on Hinge, and I was blocked. I was kicked off of Hinge. I never got to get on.
Dude, that's insane.
And I've wanted to veto it and like send the whole thing and all this stuff, but yeah, no.
Dude, because like for me, I think Hinge is like the best option.
Don't get me wrong, Hinge is my favorite platform, and it breaks my heart that I can't use it, and it sucks so bad that I can't use it in Florida.
Yeah.
But Hinge is one of the more professional, and I feel like the easier sites to find people who are looking more for
Yeah, because both of you guys can engage with one another. It doesn't have
and the way you like, and you can comment on stuff and stuff. You don't just have to swipe right and hope they swipe right back. It's not just looks, you know?
And also Tinder kind of has the perspective of hookup culture.
Absolutely.
And yeah, dude, Hinge is the best one. So
and down there, I'm having to use Tinder to find these girls that want to date. And I'm like, okay.
As my dad would say, next thing you know, your dick ends up in a sling.
But yeah, it's a mess down there.
I can only imagine, dude, because like, just wait until you're my age. Because what ends up happening is people are not going to like this. I'm just going to be honest with you. You know, if the reality is, Brody, if we were females, it'd be okay to have this conversation, talk about what we desire in a partner. But you and I are men. We can't talk about that. Shut up. But I don't stand by that. I don't really care, dude. I don't want a big woman. Okay. Like, I'm pretty fit myself for the most part. I take care of myself well. Okay. I don't want to take on the responsibility of somebody else's kids, other men. Like, that's great for them. But for my personal choice, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I've set my life up where I don't have kids. I don't have that responsibility. And so when I have a woman that I'm talking to that already has kids, I have to bear the responsibility of that child and also engage into the relationship with her. And that dynamic, I just don't know how to approach. And I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but the older you get, like 28 years old, like that's what you're looking at in the dating world. Or it's this 40-year-old super successful woman who has it all together, no kids, no money, or no kids, tons of money, and she's all about being independent. And then it's like, well, where's my place as a man? Nowhere. I don't fit into that unless I just want to be a sugar baby, you know?
It makes it hard, especially with that when they have that mindset. Because I'm all for that mindset, and I'm all for it, but it makes it hard for us to engage with them and want to engage with them when they don't allow us, you know, when they don't accept, you know, acts of service or, you know, stuff like that. It's just like, you know, okay, I get it. You don't need no man. Like, that's cool. But also, you know, like, you know, we can, you know, be just as engaged in this relationship.
How do you feel about serving your girl?
So I'm big on it. Like, you know, it's weird because every girl I've been with, it's always, oh, I'll buy my own dinner. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Let me get it for you. But I appreciate that offer, you know, of you wanting to purchase this and stuff like that. But as a man, I feel as if it's kind of, you know, politically correct for me to take the bill. And I don't mind doing that.
Do you feel better when you take the bill?
Yeah, I think so. I've never not taken the bill.
Okay.
I've never not taken a bill.
So I've definitely tried this out because I had this conversation with my mom multiple times. Like, we're in a world of feminism, like equality. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like, let's both act on this. Right. So you pay for yours, I pay for mine, or the next one we go on, you pay for, dude, that never works. Never works. That is such a terrible thing. And the reality is, at the time, the reason why I was doing that was because I didn't have money to pay for those dates that I was going on. So I was seeking that with the woman to kind of reciprocate my efforts in that relationship or dating scene or whatever. Now I wouldn't do that. Like, I make enough money where that's not even a issue. I'll take the bill every time. But like, also, like, not even just taking the bill, but holding the door open for her. You know, being a gentleman.
Always open the door.
And actually, dude, my ex, I shouldn't talk smack on him, but you know what? This is a serious issue. Is like, I want to serve you. And like, those little acts of service of opening up the door, like, the least that she can do is say thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. The least that she can do in my manual, no electric locks, no power locks in my Jeep is reach over and unlock my door as I'm walking back to my side.
Yeah.
You know,
they don't think about it.
Like, oftentimes women in today's culture, they don't think about reciprocating those efforts into the relationship. And it's like, I don't know, Brody, how do you feel about this?
I'm with you on it. So I'm a big, every time I hear it, whether it's true or not, on the first day, I always open the door. I try to get out. I try to open the door for them, you know, and it's usually, oh, wow, that's so nice. I've never had a guy open the door for me. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, that's odd, but that's just how I work, especially down there.
Yeah. Kansas boy.
Yeah. That's just that's the old Kansas charm is what I'm told.
Yeah.
But yeah, but like, been like there's been a past couple dates I've gone on where we go out and eat and we don't click. That's fine. And after I drop them off and everything, I always hit them with well, how do you feel about it? And it's oh, well, you know, maybe this isn't it. And I'm like, okay, I agree. Like, you know, I appreciate your time and everything like that. You never get a thank you. You get I get a, you know, hey, I respect you. I appreciate your opinion on that you didn't like the date or you didn't like me as a person, or a lot of times it has to do with my sobriety. They don't want to be around a man. They feel insecure around a man. And I actually did a test, and let's talk about this in a minute. But they're surrounded and they just don't like that I drink. And so it's always, you know, well, it's not what I'm looking for or this or that. And I never get it's never a thank you. Like, you know, hey, you know, I took time to go drive 30 minutes to pick you up and take you to dinner, and I took you to a nice dinner, which they don't owe me anything. They don't owe me anything. Just like, but at the same time, I'm like, you could have got a thank you, man.
Some gratitude, bro.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm taking you on a date, I'm not taking every woman on a date. Yeah. Like, I'm choosing you in that moment, and the least that you can do is say thank you.
Yeah.
I don't expect you to pick up the bill. I don't expect you to sleep in my bed tonight.
No.
I just want a good conversation over a cup of coffee, and I'm willing to drive an hour to do so. Yeah. And all I expect from that is a thank you. I appreciate it. Like a little bit of acknowledgement, because what that tells me is that in the future that she's going to recognize my efforts in the relationship. And I heard a statistic that said that the number one predictor of a successful marriage is conscientiousness of your partner.
Yeah.
Dude, knowing your partner and their needs and your gratitude towards them. Otherwise, like, you're never going to feel fulfilled in the relationship because you're never going to feel that you have a place in their life. Conscientiousness is so important when it comes to a marriage, a relationship, even a friendship. Like, I should know when Ryan's struggling. I should know when Brody's struggling. Yeah. And I should be able to step up and be like, hey, bro, man, what's going on, dude? Is everything okay? And, like, be able to have the openness of that conversation. But that's missing in the dating world.
Yeah, you're not allowed to feel that way. You're not allowed to. You can't voice how you feel about it. They can go do something. You can't voice how it is. You know, and I want to iterate on that is it's, you know, oh, well, we hung out last night. That's fine, you know, but I'm going to go out tonight, and that's cool. Like, okay, go out tonight, you know, but just let me know what you're doing. Hey, you know, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to this bar. Or, hey, we changed our minds. We're going to hang out at so-and-so's house tonight. Like, this is cool. Let me know when you get home safe. That's all I care about. That's ruined a relationship for me or a talking stage for me. I just simply wanted to know, you know, we had talked for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. I was just curious if you got home safe or not, because she had been drinking and she was driving, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, just let me know when you get home safe, or if you need a ride, let me know and I'll come get you. And I never got that. And it was oh, well, I don't owe you that. I don't owe you to let you know when I get home. And I'm like, we've been talking intimate for 3 weeks, and I just wanted to know if you got home safe. And you didn't reply. You didn't say anything until the next morning.
That's like, yo, I care about you.
Yeah, I care a little bit about your safety. Like, just let me know when you get home.
at the most basic level is caring about somebody's safety, right?
Exactly. And it's wrong for me to do that.
Dude, that is incredible. And so I got a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think that the dating world is harder for men or harder for women?
Harder for men, 1,000%. 1,000% is harder for men. Can I ask you something?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. What's your first date? First date you take a girl on. You guys have been talking for just a couple days, or maybe just a day, and you go on your first date. What is your biggest turnoff that a girl can do on that first date?
Dude, if she doesn't know a lick about her family, and I mean like somebody who obviously we've talked for a period of time. I know that she's got a few brothers and sisters, her mom, her dad, and she's involved in their lives. But when I ask her what they do, like just basic, bro, knowing your family. And she says, oh, I don't know what my dad does for work. Oh, I don't know what my mom does for work. What does that tell me? That tells me, is she going to understand me? Is she going to engage with me? Is she going to know about me? Because I need that reciprocated into the relationship, because I'm going to be putting my everything into it, and I want to know she's going to put her everything into it too. Now, somebody could say, oh, well, Levi, that you're looking into that way too deep. And in my opinion, I'm not looking at that way too deep. I'm asking a very basic question, and based off of the basic question, I'm evaluating how she views and engages with other people. So it's not a hard question. I'm not asking her about her political views or how she felt about Donald Trump or the Ukraine situation. You know, I'm not asking anything tough. It's the most basic level is family.
That's such a deep way of thinking, and I never thought of it like that. I think one of my biggest is the phone. The phone. How much are we on the phone? How much are we on the phone?
Yes.
On the whole drive over there, are we on the phone? I'm looking at that, you know. At dinner, how many times are we pulling it out? I have some girls that never pull it out the whole, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, you blow my mind.
That's awesome.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they turn out crazy.
Uh,
But it's wild to me on like how, like, dude, there'll be times where I'm not kidding you. I've had a girl where we've been eating dinner halfway, or like probably 5 minutes into the, not even, we just ordered drinks, and she's pulling her phone out, sitting here for like 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Like, I would take the bill and take you
because obviously she's not engaging.
Doesn't care. What is this to you? Like, why do you not care? You're not going to ask me questions? Like, I mean, you know, or, you know, like, why are you down here? You texting your friend? Like,
dude, I don't understand.
Are you texting Brad because like, Brad's coming over later? You know, I'm just kidding. That's so insecure. I don't actually think like that, but
I mean, yeah, we all do. I mean, I know I do.
Just like, why?
But also at the same time, what she's saying is like, my time with you is completely pointless to me. Like, I'm wasting my time, and now I'm wasting your time.
You're not cherishing, like, just put it down for 30 minutes, you know, and eat dinner with me, talk to me, ask me some questions. I don't want to sit here and ask you questions all the time. Like, ask me some questions, you know. And I think my biggest thing that I look for in relationships, because girls are always like,
sorry, there was I was getting a phone call.
Oh, everything good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
But when it comes to relationships, I think the biggest thing I look for in a relationship is, they always ask, you know, what's the biggest thing? And I say communication. Mm-hmm. Oh, communication is key. Oh, is it? Because the last 4 said that, okay?
Yeah, let's talk about communication as you're sitting on your phone for the last 5 minutes on this first date.
It's like, okay, you want communication, but then, you know, okay, just, you know, okay, you're going out to hang out with your friends. Okay, cool. That's great. You know, oh, I'm just going to have a couple. That's fine. Drink, you know, do whatever. And then I'm blacked out. I'm not communicating. I'm not this or that. And it's that, like, a lack of communication on letting me know if you're safe or not. Like, I'm just like, man, I'm just cashed out at that point. I'm like, man, I was like,
yeah,
you know, as selfish as it may sound, but just communication has ruined my past 3 situationships. I wouldn't even call them relationships because they weren't long enough to be a relationship. But the lack of communication.
See, and I've always been bad about texting. Dude, I hate texting. Just because it draws me away from the people that I'm actually with and being really intentional in the conversations with them. And so, like, I generally will look at a text message, set my phone down, completely forget about it for a couple days, and then I'll receive a follow-up text message. It's like, hey, where you been? You haven't texted me back, blah, 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 blah. And then next thing you know, they're like, oh, Levi's such a bad texter. And I'm like, yo, if you needed me, you would call me, because you know that I engage with people, you know, and I tell people that all the time. But I don't think that texting is necessarily a way for us, and maybe this is me just justifying myself, texting isn't always a way for us to evaluate how well of a communicator somebody is. But knowing how they can articulate their thoughts when they're angry, knowing how they communicate when they're sad, knowing how they communicate things when they're disappointed. I want to know how she handles. And women will typically struggle with a higher trait of neuroticism, which is negative emotion. So I want to know how she's going to handle those neurotic feelings, because then that's going to tell me potentially how she's going to handle it when we have issues in the relationship, and how I can contend with her and work through these issues that we're having. Because really, I look at a relationship as a battle. Because at the end of the day, we're two completely different people trying to come together with the same common objective. And we got to be able to bring each other on board. And there's going to be times when I'm waving my white flag and she's waving her white flag. And we're going to make a compromise and continue to move forward and be a team, be allies, because that's really what we are. But in the moments of our contention, we need to be able to look at it that way, right? Like, hey, I'm waving my flag, she's waving her flag. Okay, we meet in the middle, because faithfulness is about pursuing the long term and always choosing your partner. And I think that's extremely challenging to find somebody who views faithfulness that way, to choose your partner, to do what's in the best interest of the relationship. So often we just want to fulfill ourselves. And this is often the conversation I have on the podcast is like, we're so selfish. You kind of hit on it, man. Ego. There's so much ego there, because the majority of relationships end because of our ego. Our lack of compassion and empathy for our partner, to recognize where they're struggling and knowing how we can build them up and make them stronger. And in that, we find that we become stronger. So this kind of leads into the next part of this conversation is, how has God worked in your life?
So until probably about 6 months ago, I don't feel like I really ever had a relationship with God. I don't feel like there was much there. I went to church. My grandma was very religious. Love that woman. And she has tried everything, but never tried to force it upon me. But I would go to church, and I just never couldn't stay focused. I never really was able to, grab onto it. My religion growing up was Catholic. I'm not big into the Catholic ways and the stuff that's done. I really feel more for the Christian side of things, and I like the flow of those churches and stuff. But until 6 months ago, I didn't feel like he's involved with my life. I never really asked for him, never talked to him, never did anything. And I remember the day I went to the rehab, my grandma gave me my great-grandfather's, it was like a prayer book.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
did he have like journaled notes?
He didn't have journal notes in it, but
okay.
She also gave me his rosary. And I took it to rehab with me. And every she's like, hey, just for me, every night would you go and read a page in this book? And so I did it. And it was great because my rehab was in Colorado. It was just in the mountain in the middle of nowhere. And I'd sit out on this deck just looking at the storms rolling in over the mountains, and I would read this prayer book, dude.
Yeah.
And just going through rehab, I just felt like it, I still just felt wrong for asking him for, praying. I felt wrong for it. I felt like I was in the wrong for asking him for help. I felt like I didn't deserve to ask him after all these years of unfaithfulness, of not listening to anything or anything like that. I felt like I didn't deserve to get to ask him for help. And I slowly worked through, my mind on like allowing that to not be a part of my thought process. And I started praying, and by no means am I good at praying every night. And
I'm not.
I try to base my prayers everything but myself.
Yeah.
I'm always praying for other people, man. It's everybody else but myself. And I simply end with just saying, keep guiding me down the path that you want me to go down. And I feel more with the past events that have happened in the past few months that he's really trying to, guide me and show me where I need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's interesting because Ryan and I are trying to formulate a podcast on the story of Joseph. And he goes through all of these trials and tribulations. And in those trials, somewhere there's peace that's found. There's like this driving force, the foundation to why he makes the good, wise decisions that he continues to make throughout the narrative. And I think when we struggle, like you're struggling with alcohol, you're struggling with drugs, you're struggling with getting over that, and you're in this place of peace and you feel inadequate and you feel undeserving, I think so many people in our culture feel the same way. Like, why would a God love me so much to send his son to die in flesh on a cross for somebody as wretched and broken as me, as I've denied him for years and years and years, and getting to the place where you're like, wow, that's powerful, man. And I accept that. And it's a death to self, really, is what it is. It's like, I can't be bitter about my past. Rather, now my past becomes a way to glorify him. And that's kind of the renewed perspective that I kind of came to through all of my things. Now, I've been a Christian all my life. I gave my life to Christ when I was 12 years old. I was always involved in church up until my adulthood. Kind of had a falling out around 22, 23 years old. But other than that, I went pretty much every week, and has really been a foundation throughout my life. But which is the reason why the podcast is centered around that in a Christian worldview, is because I've always had those views. But now as I kind of like went through that 23 and up, like I was living a life, what we would consider a part of the world, and not so much denying Christ, but putting it on the back burner because I know I'm not going to fit in with the world. And I want to be liked. I want to be loved. I want to enjoy the same things that other people are enjoying, but I also know where it leads. And so like, that's the other part of wisdom, is like, this was one prayer I had when I was extremely depressed and in a dark place was, man, God, give me some wisdom. Dude, when I prayed for wisdom, I didn't know what that entailed, because wisdom means I have to experience and experience myself, experience the darkest moments and evaluate them so that I have now not just the knowledge of being in that dark place, but applying it into my life and saying, that's not who I want to be, but it's a place where I can glorify him.
Beautiful, man. That is beautiful.
And I think maybe, you know, from what you shared, that's kind of what I got, is like, you know, being there.
I can tell you the moment where I was like, there's another, he's real. Like, it's the moment where I truly felt like he showed me himself to me. And I remember I was working in Emporia for a job. I traveled for work. And I met a girl on Tinder, and we went on a date to get some drinks. I picked her up. We went and got some drinks. And out of nowhere, you know, when I was in active addiction, I made myself scarce around my parents, you know, never wanted to be around them.
You didn't want to make them shameful of your decisions.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember I was on this date, and my dad texted me or called me. I can't remember. And he said, hey, me and mom are coming through Emporia. Do you want to get some ice cream or something like that, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, I'm on a date. Like, I'm sorry, I can't, you know, unfortunately. And so that's like, okay, you know, well, we were doing this, so we just thought we'd ask. And I was like, all right, cool. And hung up the phone and went on to that date. And it's just eating me in the back of my head. I'm like, I need to get ice cream with them. I need to go get ice cream with them. And I called them back and I said, I'll go get ice cream with you. So I told this girl, I told her the situation, and she totally thought I was ditching her. And I don't blame her. I was like, hey, I have to go see my parents real quick. And I said, after this is over and I have ice cream with them, I'm going to come back, pick you up, and we'll resume. Right. And she's like, oh, if you don't like the date, just tell me. And I'm like, no, I swear this is going great, but I need to go see them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I dropped her off and I said, I promise I'll be right back. And I texted my parents, and they met me at the hotel. And I got in that car, and I got in the back seat, and my grandma was with them. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. You know, we sat down, and my mom turns around, and she goes, we know you're using. And I go, what are you talking about? And they know, we know you're doing drugs, hard drugs. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, no way.
Deny.
Yeah, deny. And finally I said, F it. And I said, yeah, I am, you know, I am. So, and I remember sitting.
What was it like? So what does it mean to you? Yeah. Like, it's my life. Yeah, leave me alone.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I wanted to go for. But I remember just sitting there just so like, I'm done, dude. It's like you finally give up. It's like you finally quit running. You just give up and you just like, it's no more denial. You just sit there and you're just like, yeah, I'm fucked. I'm broken.
Yeah.
I'm screwed. This is it. You know, like, you're right. And they're like, you know, okay. And I kind of blocked out because I was already drunk when I was with them, but I kind of blocked it out. But I was like, yeah. And that was it, you know. And my dad was like, you still want to go get ice cream? No.
No, you just made this whole situation awkward. Yeah. You made me leave a date.
Oh, yeah.
So that you could tell me that you know that I'm using.
You know what I did after? I got out of the car and went and picked up that date again. And you know what I did? I went and got messed up. And ran from it, dude. I remember going back to my hotel room and I was just like, this is it. I think, you know, that's it. I did. Yeah. And it's lucky I didn't get caught in other ways, you know, DUIs and stuff like that. You know, I was always messed up. I always loved to do burnouts when I was drunk and wreak havoc.
When you had that Mustang?
Yeah, I know. It was when I had that black truck.
Oh, okay. The big, it was a Dodge?
Yeah. Big Cummins, dude. That thing, yeah, I'd just tear things up with that. But yeah, and that boat.
So, like, what later on, because I think, you know, when something hits us, it is that deny. And then it's also like, who cares? Like, kind of whatever. Like, that's a natural human reaction when we're called out on something that we're doing wrong. But then, like, it's those 3 a.m. thoughts later on.
3 a.m. thoughts, dude. Those are brutal. 3 a.m. thoughts are brutal, man. I still have them, dude. You still have them. Right.
And so, like, what was, like, the point where you're like, man, I need to go to rehab?
I'll be honest with you. Right before it all went downhill quick. But I had actually just lost a good friend for an overdose, and it just all happened so quick. And I remember I denied it. I was like, no. And then they're like, we want you to go to rehab. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to rehab. I said, that's crazy. I don't have a problem. I'm not going to rehab. I don't need it.
Deny.
Yeah, deny. And so then it was what about out of treatment rehab? You know, like where you go in on your days off or whatever and you get treatment, the help, all that. And I was like, no. And then finally I was like, I'll do it, whatever. I'll go to rehab. Mm-hmm. So they found a place in Florida, ironic, and ended up not going to that one because it wasn't the greatest one. And there was one in Colorado. And I remember I had 1 weekend left before I went. I had 1 weekend left. And this steps into something. I had 1 weekend left, and I had already told my buddy I was going to go down to K-State for the K-State game, man. And it's like your last meal. You know, you think of it like your last meal before.
Dude, seriously, yes.
Dude, I'm sitting there just getting messed up, and I'm just like, man, like is this it? Like, is this the last time? No, this isn't it. I'm just going to rehab to make my parents happy. And I'm like, this is it. And so that was last weekend, and I actually sold my boat that weekend. And then my buddy went and dropped me off at the airport, and I got absolutely messed up in the airport, got absolutely obliterated in the airport, and flew that plane. Now, I got sober by the time I hit Denver, and then I had an hour and a half Uber to the rehab facility. And I get in and I check in, and they're like, so, Brody, what are you on? And I said, well, I'm drank at the airport. And they go, you're surprisingly sober for coming into a rehab facility. And I said, yeah, I didn't know if you guys would let me in or not if I was messed up. Otherwise, I would be just cracked out of my mind right now. And so, you know, you have to do the whole piss test and the drug, yeah. So, yeah.
Dude, it's kind of funny because you do have that Last Supper feeling, you know.
Every bit of it, dude. I'm like,
you know, yeah, dude. When it was June 31st. So like I said, I'm only like 3 weeks into this, but I had 9 beers in the fridge. I had like 3/4 of a bottle of vodka. I had a quarter of a bottle of Jim Beam and about a quarter of a bottle of Maker's Mark. And I was like, man, I'm going to drink as much as I possibly can to get rid of this, right? And so at 6 a.m. when I got off of work, I know it sounds bad for everybody. I work nights, so it's technically 6 in the evening for me at 6 a.m. But at 6 a.m., dude, by 7, I had crushed 9 beers, okay? And then I made like a couple little cocktails of vodka and cranberry, and then I made a couple cocktails of Jim Beam and Sprite, and I look at the clock. It's like 10:30, bro. I wake up in the bathtub at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I'm like, my stomach is just rolling. I'm about to throw up, and it's that question like, how the hell did I get here?
Those bigger jobs.
And then that was it, bro. I was like, all right. I showed myself where I never want to be again. I never want to be in this bathtub again.
I'm happy you got to see that.
By myself, miserable, wanting to throw up. What a meaningless, pointless thing that I'm involving myself in for no long-term satisfaction, but rather to temporarily mitigate all of the problems in my life. And so I was like, you know what? Next day, dude, I had to have that physical display of opening up those bottles, and kadoosh into the sink. Yeah.
Done it.
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
Yeah.
Done it.
And
been there.
It's like, is that the last time? I can't say that it's the last time, but I know that I don't want to start my marriage. I don't know if I'll ever be married, but I don't want to start my marriage that way at the wedding. I don't want to be drunk with her on the most beautiful night. I want to enjoy that in my most sober mindset, because I've looked at it for so long as something where I'm like, I'm so excited about it, And so like right now, Ryan, Evan, a few of us are doing the 75 hard challenge, Andy Fischella, and it requires that you don't drink alcohol, essentially, that you don't, if you smoke weed or do drugs, like you don't do any of that. You work out twice a day. You drink a gallon of water a day. You stay on a diet of your choice. You spend 10 minutes, or what technically the challenge is, 10 pages of reading a day. And we're taking upon that challenge. But not only that, it's like, dude, I have other men around me that want the same thing as me. And so like we can have this sense of encouragement. Did you kind of find that in the rehab facility? Like, did that make you feel comfortable that there were other people that were struggling with the same things you had?
It's funny you talk about that. It's great. I'm glad you brought that up. It was so, I remember talking about this. It was so relieving just being there surrounded by other people that just were as messed up as I was. So the way mine works is you went in and you did detox, which was at least a week minimum, if not more if you needed it. Worst week of my life. Oh my God. Dude, hallucinations. I thought someone was trying to break into my room, like you hear all sorts of stories, but I personally felt the hallucinations and stuff like that. I did a week and 3 days of detox. No phone, nothing. You just detox. You're stuck in a room. You get to leave for lunch and dinner, and that's it. And I remember getting out, and you go into what's called a cohort of group of people that came in at the same time as you. And I'm just listening to their stories. And I'm like, wow. I said, these people are just as messed up as I am. Like, that is so cool. And it's sad, but it's true. It's like, oh my God, they're worse than me. And my favorite thing to do was to watch people and pick out their tics. They're like the things they do, one person's over here like doing this, or like the next person, like just analyzing what these people do, like reading them as a person. And beginning of these stages of these meetings you had all day, every day, is it got deeper and deeper. And at the end, dude, you're listening to these people's stories, and I'm like, what? I'm like that, like, dude, what? That's crazy, man. Like these people are just telling these crazy stories of just how screwed up their lives are. And I'm like, wow, it could be worse. I could have it worse,
Like, here you are, you got it all together, being whatever issues, traumas you had as a child, but at least you still have your mom and dad. And I'm sure like some of them are like, yo, my mom was a raging alcoholic. My dad was a meth addict.
They did these
and then
things.
Abuse and things that you didn't experience. And I think that's the power of testimony. And that's the reason why sharing those things is so great when you get to the place where you're so comfortable with sharing that, is you see the power in that, not the power for you, but again, coming back to kind of tying that in, that power of glorifying Christ through those challenges that you face, man, that's incredible.
It was pretty eye-opening experience for me, for sure. I loved it. It was great. It was such a great rehab facility. I heard the horror stories of people who've gone to other rehab facilities, and, a lot of them just want their money and stuff, but this one was great, dude. I met a lot of cool people, met a lot of, I met people that, had high stature, had higher stature in the world that, were dealing with the same issues and stuff like that, Obviously,
like you're talking like uber successful.
Yeah, like I'm not like singers and stuff like that. I don't want to name drop, but it's just people who have had issues that are also like they have way more than you did, and they still have issues. It's not how much you have or what you have or this or that. It's worse when you get there. If you think money's the.
And then there's also these young men, dude, like young men that didn't have a father in the home, never felt love from a mother, never felt encouragement. And so their whole life, they're like, I'm, as harsh as it is, a victim. I'm a victim to all of my circumstances. And really what it is a lack of hope. They have no hope for their future.
They have no vision.
Because everything in their past has been stripped away from them, and they had no agency of their own life. So there was no sovereignty to take that next step. And it's like, maybe that's just what people need, is that little bit of encouragement. Say, hey, take that step. Dude, and sometimes that encouragement is that slap in the face with your parents. Like, hey, we know you're using.
Yeah.
And the immediate reaction within the human being is always that deny, 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 deny. And then it may come with a little bit of anger. Some people turn to a little bit of strife and bitterness. And in that, then they find that they're just digging themselves deeper into the addiction, and they never come to the realization, wow, I need to change my life. Next thing you know, they're 50 years old and their life is absolutely miserable, and their kids don't even want to have anything to do with them. Their husband, their wife has already left them, and they're just sad. It is like, no, there's so much hope and there's so much potential in life.
My ex-girlfriend told my parents that I was using, and that's how they found out. And the absolute hatred I had towards that woman is unreal. Like, you just took everything from me. You saw an opportunity to take everything away from me, and that's what she did, is ripped it out of me. I'm going to go tell your parents and mess up your life.
What a blessing, though.
Dude, and I say it all the time. And there's times where I still cuss to this day that she did that. And then I just remember, I'm just like, man, dude, it's like, look at me now. Look at me now, man. That's all, like, it's so much better.
It's like, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It's such a positive perspective, but it's so hard to come to that perspective and continually accept it. Because I think about that with my ex, and I'm not talking my most recent, but the one before, and it was my shortest long-term relationship. It was only 9 months, but I say she's the woman that got away. And I realized, and I want to hit on this ego part, because, that's such a good topic to hit on. But like, I realized that I was living this lie in every relationship that I was in, and I was unwilling to be real and honest and straightforward and call it as I see it. And I would lie to myself. Like with her, I'd tell her, hey, I'm moving to California with you. Yeah. And then the time came, and I'm like, no, I'm not ready. But I knew the whole time I wasn't ready. And I was willing to live that lie just to keep her around. And the reality is now, like, if I could change things, I would have made that decision. But mentally then, I wasn't ready for that. And recognizing that broke me. That changed me. That made me realize all of these lies I've been living, everything I've done with my ego and protecting myself is now got to be put to the wayside, and I got to have a renewed part of me, because you know what? The woman who is going to choose me doesn't deserve me to be like that, right? And so I got to be the man that she's always dreamed of. I mean, even if it's her princess mentality, I always talk against the princess mentality. But ego, bro, us men struggle with ego so much.
Dude, ego is such a big, it's the root of all my issues. It really is. It comes to an ego. And honestly, a lot of people, if we're going to get into this, a lot of people are going to say they didn't see this. They didn't take it like this. But I genuinely feel like I was put down. I was bullied growing up. I feel like I was bullied. I felt less than and always have. A lot of people will deny that and say Brody was one of the popular kids. Brody was one of the cool kids, this and that. And I faked it till I made it, and I squeezed my way into those friend groups and stuff like that. But also in those friend groups, I loved them to death, but I was also belittled in those groups. And when I got out of high school, I wanted to be better than them. I wanted to be better than everybody. I wanted to have the nicest stuff. I went out and worked and tried to get as much money as I could. I bought the fancy stuff. I got out of my relationship. That was a year. I've never had a relationship longer than a year. And I said, I'm going to prove to you that I am, you missed out, even though I was the one who ended it. I went and bought a boat, a big boat, called it the Thought Yacht. Love that boat, that thing. Some great times on that thing, but man, did that thing cause me some issues. And I went and bought a brand new big truck. And I remember I just wanted to be better than everybody. I had to be better than everybody. I wanted everybody to look at me like, damn, he's cooler.
He's got it made.
He's got it made. And to this day, I still struggle with ego for sure. All my friends will tell you I struggle with ego, but it's a lot less than what it was. Nowadays, I still drive a big, flashy truck. I still do. I still love boats. But I do love that flashy truck because I love trucks. I love diesels. I love, working on them. I love them. So as much as it does show as, it's, he's compensating and stuff like that, it's really not like that. I really enjoy the trucks that I have and the toys and the fun and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But ego can really, really manipulate your life. And I see it happen to a lot of people, and I would love to step in and say something, but I know that if I step in and say ego, it's usually people I'm not close with. And if I try to step in and say something, it's you're a hater, man. You're a hater, and you'll always be a hater. And then that just fuels it more. I just step back and I pray that they figure it out, because I was that way once, man.
Yeah.
And people try to say, you're an egotistical, piece of crap. And I was like, man, you're just hating on me because I'm doing better than you.
And I think this is one area that we all have to grow on.
Right.
It's like, once you recognize ego as the issue, like, it's easy to identify a problem. It's really hard to act out a solution, right? And so when we approach relationships, those friends, whatever, girlfriend, how do you communicate that, hey, I'm concerned about you. I don't want to see you go down this road. And I think that oftentimes it's planting the seed without being so straightforward, where I used to tell Ryan all the time, my goal is to make you go home and sit and think about it at 3 a.m. My goal isn't to change you right now. I want you to think about it later. And
think about what?
Anything.
Okay.
Anything that was challenging to the individual.
Okay.
I want them to think about that
in
later.
A relation standpoint, or just any standpoint, talking to anybody?
Anybody now.
Okay.
So implementing that, because I don't have the power to change somebody, and I have to recognize that. None of us have the power to change anybody, right? Like, that's God changing them. But what are we called to be? We're called to be loving. We're called to be involved in that relationship, even if we don't accept everything that they're doing, even if we don't like it, we're still called to be there. And that's so hard, because then you still have to set yourself aside, because you have these like selfish emotions, these self thoughts, and everything is about how you feel about it. And it's not like, well, let's have some empathy, let's have some compassion, but know that, hey, I still want you to know the peace that you could have separate from that ego, separate from those times when you're gossiping about the girls, whatever it is, but planting that seed. Hey, I see that you've been talking about women. Don't you think a little bit more highly of them than that? There we go. That's all I got to say.
I think it's challenging, but like sometimes people just need to like, you need to like just think about what you're going to say to somebody before you say it because of how greatly that can affect their lives.
Absolutely.
And obviously you can't change somebody, but you can make it worse, by, when, man, like, whether you say a hasty comment, that's going to sit in the back. Like, even the littlest things, like, oh, you're balding, now you're wearing a hat, that's such an old thing. But yeah, I mean, it's true. You really need to think about what you're saying and how you're saying it to people and how it can manipulate their lives.
Right. And that's why I say get out of the aspect of emotion in it. Is because if you're operating in emotion, typically you're operating to disappoint or you're speaking out of anger or sadness or whatever that is. So like getting outside of the emotional reason why you're talking to them and honestly doing it from a loving standpoint where like, I don't have to yell at you, Brody. I don't have to tell you to get off cocaine. I don't have to be like, you stupid, arrogant shithead. I don't have to say those things. I can just be like, yo, man, I'm just concerned about you, and I just want you to think about it later.
That goes a million times farther than the first thing you did.
Exactly.
I've never, in any relationship, I lie. Okay, that's a lie. Very rarely have I ever raised my voice in a relationship towards a woman. I feel as if you need to raise your voice in a situation you feel littler or less than, and you're trying to get your point across. A man who doesn't raise his voice is a man who has great stature and knows what his words mean and what they're worth. So yelling at somebody, yelling at a guy, yelling in a fight, even as mad as you are, is never going to make the situation except show that you're weak.
Exactly. And here's the thing, dude. Working in private security, I have to practice this all the time. Even when I'm extremely stressed out and anxious, even when my emotions are high, being able to still look at them calmly in the eye, not showing any change of my emotions, having complete control of my physical, where I'm not giving it away that I'm worried. Because what does that say? That says that I have a lower realm of competence and confidence. And so then it shows a weakness in me that they can potentially take advantage of me. So speak calmly. And then when I mean act, you better stop right now. Like, whoa, like now that I did that and you never saw that out of me, that just changed the whole dynamic of this situation. He means business and I don't want to mess with him.
Yeah.
And so like understanding that human psychology and really being able to capture that even into relationships, man. When I was about to go through the breakup the last time, like I'm in so many relationships. Like I've been in 4 serious relationships since I was 18 years old. But coming towards the end of that relationship, I knew that we were about to go in and have this conversation. I had to have this prayer, like, God, like whatever your will is, let it be done. And I knew I wasn't going to go in to speak with anger. I knew I wasn't going to go in and speak out of emotion. I knew whatever she said was going to be my answer. And I was going to accept that answer. And I wasn't going to let it control me because I can't control her. So the only thing I can control is me and how she's going to perceive me afterwards. So I'm not going to sit here and make myself look bad and demean her because I'm hurt. I'm going to bear that hurt. I'm going to bear the weight of that so that she knows how Christ is with me. And see, that's so powerful because then she recognizes possibly grace, mercy, love, empathy, compassion. She recognizes these things because I'm not acting out of self-will. I'm acting for her benefit to know Christ. Yeah. So really it's for Christ. Yeah. And this is like part of being a Christian. It's like really tying all of this in, man. Because and you're probably, it sounds like you're going through the like still that transition phase, I guess.
When it comes to religion?
When it comes to religion, and that like you're just in a growth period still. Yeah. And you're only 23 years old, it's not a bad place to be. It's you're actually in a good place. You're in a better place than probably a lot of 28-year-olds, you know, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
because where you'll be able to look back when you're 30, 40 years old, you'll be able to say, wow, I'm happy that I woke up at 22, you know?
Right. I remember the times when I didn't want to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So happy I did, though.
Dude, I'm happy
Life's
for you
good.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You were talking about, you know, the way we talk to people in your situation being, you know, private security and stuff like that. Would you classify yourself as private security, or what would I'm curious on that, honestly. What would you are you security? Are you?
So yeah, I wear security, and
Okay.
people hear security and they think I'm just walking around checking doors.
Yeah, no.
Right? Like shaking keys, shaking knobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. It's not that,
You're
man.
dealing with
I engage with 2,500 people a night,
Mm-hmm.
and every single one of them, I have to give them my undivided attention. And maybe when it is
That's good for you.
divided, is that I got 3 people in the store that are a potential threat, not necessarily to me, but to my clerk or another customer. And I have to be willing at any moment to act. And so the mental fortitude has to be there. I have to be resilient even when I'm tired. And so, like, I have to control my emotions. I have to be able to communicate well. I have to be able to engage with them on a way that I'm able to develop a relationship with them to prevent a potential problem in the future. So there's all these complexities. So no, it's not just simple security. It's like everything to do with human psychology. It's so big in what I do.
Have you watched the voiceovers, the voice recordings of pilots when they're having issues, when they're having malfunctions, when they're flying? Calm. They never break. You sometimes you can tell, but they never break. They never break. And even the tower people, it's always, hey, you know, flight 767. When you get, isn't that the flight that went down?
I don't know.
So when, you know, they're like, hey, you know, flight, you know, whatever. They're like, when you get a chance, can you tell me how many souls are on board, how many gallons of fuel you have? Because I don't know if you know this, when a plane takes off, they never take off with more fuel than what they need. They take off with the amount of fuel that they're going to need to get to their destination.
Right, because the weight.
Because if they land with that weight, then it'll mess up the plane.
Right.
So if they have to make an emergency landing, they either have to burn it off, which fly around, or they have to dump it, and they just straight dump it into the you know. But they have to make all these calls.
EPA didn't say anything about that.
Right. They don't care about that. But I cut my muffler off my truck, and good God, I'm killing the environment. Help me, God. But yeah, you know, and you just never see them. It's just crazy to watch how, because you have to be calm, man. You're in charge of driving this flying object of so many people. You know, it's just like, it's tough. It's tough.
It's just the classic view of stoicism, man. Just knowing where you're at, knowing what drives you, knowing where you need to change, and being calm in your reaction when things aren't going the way you want them to go.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean you're just a stonewall person. No, you have emotions. You can be happy. You can be sad. You can be disappointed. You can experience all the parts of being a human being. But at the same time, you understand the purpose. You understand the meaning. And so you're calm, and you know that there's a resolution to all of it. And it's that right now I act in the best interest for the future. I don't act in temporary satisfaction or gratification. Man, yeah, all that's so good, dude. So how do you deal with your soberness? And, like, I think both of us can share on that.
Okay, yeah. I think when it first started, it was tough, especially getting off the alcohol. So I want to drink, you know, this and that and stuff. But then I slowly started to realize it's more I want to drink and run from my problems. It's my issues. When I'm having a tough time, you know, I want to go drink. Do you ever feel that way? You ever feel like something, even the minor inconvenience in your life, and you're like, damn, I deserve a beer?
Yeah. All the time, dude. Every day I get off of work, I'm like, I could really use a beer right now.
What about like small victories and stuff in your life? You're like, oh, I need to celebrate. I deserve a beer.
I think I drink so much that I never even recognized if I was drinking for a celebration or if I was drinking because I was sad. Like, I don't know why I was drinking. And I think that is now what I'm struggling with, is trying to determine that. You know, I'm so early in sobriety that it's really hard to identify that. And I think I'm going to be figuring that out over the next few weeks, especially because like right now I want a beer so bad, like, you know, just take off that edge. And that may have been what it was. Maybe it was like I would drink to take off the edge because I had some general normal anxiety. And if I just take that off, I'll just feel better. I'll feel more relaxed. And then what did that lead to? It wasn't 1 or 2 beers. It was like, I'm going to crush that 12-pack. Mm-hmm. Let's go get another one because I'm going to drink all those too. You know, throw in a couple shots of Fireball, have some Jim Beam, whatever it is. I'm like, just run down that rabbit hole of absolute drunkenness.
And then you're sitting in the bathtub.
Yeah,
you're sitting in the bathtub. That shameful bathtub.
So yeah, dealing with sobriety, man, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go for me.
It's a lot. I'll tell you this, a lot of people at this stage you're at right now fail because of 2 things, okay? It's the temptation, the want to drink, the urge to feel like you need to drink, and then the second is it's so easy to run back to, especially with your friends. If you're accustomed to going out Friday nights with your buddies, Saturday nights drinks with your buddies, it's so hard. I'm not telling you to kick your friends out. I'm not telling you to get rid of them. But it is so hard when your buddy's like, dude, let's go out, man. And you're like, oh, okay. And then the next thing you know, you're accidentally at the bar and you're like drinking. You just don't even realize. And that's where you lose it. And then you end up back down a rabbit hole.
Which is interesting to me because on the 4th of July, I was over at my buddy's house, best friend since like 5th grade. And he was drinking and he's like, Levi, you don't want a beer? I'm like, nah, man, I'm good. And
really?
That was like somewhat easy for me, even on the 4th of July. And yeah, I felt like, dude, I'm winning this victory. And yes, I'm all for it. Last weekend down in Dallas, bro, every time I go to the stockyards, every time I went to Dallas, it was absolute debauchery for the whole weekend. And now last weekend, it was like, nope, not even touching it, not even smelling it, not even going to a bar. And that was easy for me, even though I had like minor temptation. But then like last night, bro, like it's almost like I had the shakes for it, you know? Like I want it because now I'm comfortable. I'm at home, but I'm live on TikTok. I'm doing this and that on making content, like just taking off the little bit of that edge as I'm say performing behind the microphone. Yeah, man, now I want it. Because it's easy. It's what I'm used to. I'm more accustomed to drinking here at home when I have friends over or I'm doing something online or I'm recording a podcast. It's so much easier to drink here. This is my comfort zone. The bar wasn't necessarily my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And so, fortunately, I'm blessed with friends that don't drink that often. My buddy, best friend Trent, like, yeah, we drink almost 80% of the time that we hang out together just because we don't see each other that often. But when I hang out with Ryan's not a big drinker. He don't like to drink that much, so it's kind of easy for me not to do it. But I have another friend that was supposed to come over tonight, and that's all we did was drink.
It's tough. It really is tough.
Man, Brody, I appreciate you coming on to the podcast. It was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to add like all of your Instagram and TikTok and everything and the handles and everything? Okay, I'll do that. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share?
No.
Your final words?
I say that anybody who's going through sobriety, just keep going. You'll get it. You'll figure it out. You may not get it the first time. You may not get it the second time, but just keep going. You'll get it.
Yeah.
You'll get it. It'll stick.
And I want to close this up by saying, you know, obviously we talked about relationships. We talked about some perspectives on women and the dating world and all the different aspects of life. But one thing that we must recognize, and I think you found this through your challenges and what you've been going through lately, is that you have to evaluate all those things because that may be the trigger to lead you back there. And so this conversation that we're having, although it seems like we're taking a bunch of rabbit trails and stuff like that, people will often say that about my podcast, but maybe not understand the complexity that the conversations that we're having is intended to make you evaluate those things so that they aren't necessarily triggers for you, so that your emotions don't send you over that edge, so that the breakup doesn't send you to the alcohol or the line of cocaine or whatever it is for you, that you've evaluated these things, you're prepared for that battle, and you know that you're going to win. That is absolutely essential to your discipline and personal growth in the future. So absolutely, bro. I appreciate you coming on. If you guys would, on the Pursuing Truth podcast, go ahead, subscribe on YouTube, give me a follow on Spotify, leave an Apple Podcast rating and review, follow there so that you're notified when new episodes come out. The power of you leaving a review on Apple Podcast is that it just pushes this out organically to more people who would find this type of conversation, say with Brody, with Evan last week, or Ryan, or anybody that's been on the podcast. Gives them a way to find it organically and maybe find some meaning, some purpose, a drive in their life to develop things that we've talked about here: discipline, personal responsibility, and accountability. With that being said, guys, I appreciate you all so much for supporting me and this platform, and I am happy to continue to go. Thank you again, Brody. Love y'all. Stay safe.